Hello, everyone. My name is Celine, and I'm your host for today. Welcome to the Road to PDC sharing session. This is a series of online events prior to the Product Development Conference 2021 that will be held this coming 7th and 8th April. We're inviting professionals in product development areas to share their insights and experience, and also help you solve challenges you face at work. So today, our topic is essential product frameworks, and we have three really amazing speakers joining us for today's session. Let me get to introducing them. So first up, we have UI from OVO. He's the VP of Product Strategy. Hi, UI.
Everyone.
A little bit about yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is UI. I'm originally from Malaysia, but I've spent a good amount of time in Indonesia, Jakarta, and it's been a fantastic, experience since I've also joined OVO. So I'm currently looking after product strategy and various product areas in OVO. I'm looking forward to share and learn more from everyone on this call.
Thanks, UI. I'm excited to learn more from you too. So next up, we have Tanisha. She's the Director of Product at Pomelo Fashion.
Hi everyone, this is Tanisha. I'm currently working as Director of Product at Pomelo, wherein we are on to creating Southeast Asia's best omni-channel multi-brand fashion and lifestyle platform. I've been in Bangkok for over 3 years now. I'm originally from India. I recently got promoted to a new role of a first-time mom, to my bundle of joy. And on the sides, I like to innovate in my kitchen, try out new cafes. I recently picked up 2 side projects of NICU parenthood, and also about how I survived cancer and how it changed me, and so on and so forth. It's so cool to come on today and share what the essential frameworks we use at Pomelo. Thanks, Celine.
Thanks, Nisha. Oh, you have a really interesting life. Thanks for sharing. And congrats on being a new mom.
Thanks.
So next up, we have Zach. He's the head of product at Xfers.
Hello, everyone. Hi. So, as introduced, I'm Zach, head of product at Xfers. Been leading the product team at Xfers for the past 3.5 years now. And our mission at Xfers is to improve the digital infrastructure for financial access in Southeast Asia. Right? And our first focus right now is to improve the payment space in the region. Really happy to be here today to share with you some frameworks that will be helpful, hopefully, for your product management journey.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be helpful. Thanks, Jack. Sorry, Zach. Okay. Sorry, my bad. Okay, so yeah, thanks for the introductions. Happy to meet all of you. I'm really excited to hear about your takes on various frameworks. Anyway, so how's the year's been going on for all of you? I'm personally very surprised and shocked that it's already the end of Q1. How has it been for you three?
Time flies since the pandemic started. Actually, in OVO, we started work from home around March, April last year. And it's been close to a year now, already a year actually, right? It's actually quite interesting and amazing that we are all dialing each other up via calls. I personally think we've been quite productive. Being in a remote situation. I think we get to do a lot more, but at the same time we also get busier. So yeah, I think it's been great. It's been really busy. A lot of reprioritizing, reimagining our focus for every quarters because we don't know when the pandemic is actually going to end. But yeah, it's been great so far.
It sounds really exciting, actually. Zach,
yeah, just adding on to that, I'll just jump in and add on to it. At Pomelo, since the headquarters that I'm part of is based out of Thailand, where the situation of COVID is far better. There have been second and third waves, but we've been okay. And the lockdown got up since a few months back. Then for a month or two, it was back again. But now we are all going to office. But what it has led to the last year is lot of critical thinking on what should be our business goals, what to target with the changing situation. I think the changing situation required a lot of adaptability, especially from the product community coming together, because like the product planning needs to happen again, resource planning needs to happen again, and so on and so forth. So it's been really challenging yet rewarding times, I would say.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, I think we can probably all concur on that. Zach, how about you?
I think a lot of the same points have been covered. It's been a very interesting 1.5 years so far, or rather 1 year so far since the pandemic happened, and the shift from being in the office to becoming fully remote work for the whole team, and trying to coordinate product initiatives across with everyone being online, right? I think it's been a refreshing take to how we work on product. I wouldn't say that it's all bad, because we kind of lose a little bit of this the water cooler chat that we used to have in the office. But at the same time, there's a lot more documentation that's involved, very open communication using online chat services, right? So it's not all bad. And being able to overcome this and moving into this year 2021, I think just trying to figure out whether we should transition back into being fully in the office or some kind of hybrid mode of working, what kind of processes that we should put in place to continue working better on the product. Yeah, those are the coming challenges, I believe, for those people in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, it's interesting. We are in different countries, but I think we're all facing the same issues. I guess it kind of brought us closer together in a very interesting way. Let's hope. Hope everyone comes out better from this. Sounds like, it's a good opportunity for us to really reimagine our process, right? I think we wouldn't be here today if not for COVID, because at Tech in Asia really bet big on improving online virtual experience, including this session. So
this is the first time I've been on a YouTube live stream while sharing. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, hope you enjoyed the experience. I hope this will be the first of many more to go. Okay, thanks for sharing. I guess we can just get started. So for today's session, we'll be starting with the presentation from all three speakers, followed by a panel discussion, and we will close the session with a Q&A segment with the audience. So for the audience, if you have any questions, please submit it into the chat box at the side of I think on YouTube. So let's get started. We'll start the presentation with UI. The stage is yours, and the rest of the panelists will see you later.
Cool. Thank you, Celine. Just to confirm, you can see my screen?
Yes.
Cool. Got it. Okay. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet all of you. I am currently dialing in from KL, Malaysia, my hometown. So I've spent a lot of time in Indonesia since 2016, where pretty much the e-payment, e-money, e-wallet scene was just starting up, and it has grown really, really fast to where it is today. So in OVO, I'm currently looking after product strategy and also various product areas in the team. So today I'm looking forward to share what we actually do in our product and how we think about the framework, and also learn from the rest of you. So just to start off, I think maybe just give a quick introduction for those of you who are streaming in what actually is OVO. So OVO is the leading digital financial services company in Indonesia. So essentially what we do is we look after things like payments. We offer various financial products like lending, insurance, investment. We have a proper rewards and loyalty program, and we're also in the midst of creating a financial services marketplace. So what actually we do in our mission is that we are trying to solve for digital payments while we introduce a new suite of holistic solutions across the board. So some of the pain points today that we face, especially in Indonesia, is that it is still a very cash-based society. what we want to do is we want to replace that inefficiencies in cash to secure transactions between states, irregardless of location. We want to make sure that you are safely securing your money, storing your money, and also have good access to different financial products that maybe a lot of people in Indonesia today don't have. So talking about specifically about product, I think maybe just to give some idea of scale, right? So how we look at product is essentially the same like how you want to build a house. It starts from understanding what you want to build, what you want to solve, all the way to actually working across different teams to deliver that house, right? So in OVO, what we have is that we have a collaboration of a product framework across 20 teams. It's quite a big team across business, commercial teams, product teams, and also project management and engineering. So we spend every quarter designing our roadmap, iterating new product designs, and also measuring our outcomes. So we operate on a 14 days sprint cycle, which means that every 2 weeks we release a new built an app, a new app built in the Play Store, iOS and Android. And it's been a wonderful experience for the last 2 years for myself personally to be part of this ever-changing environment and product development cycle. So in OVO, we try to remind ourselves about 4 things. As you can see on the screen here, the first on the left, it is something that is very, very commonly dealt with in almost every product or tech company, which is outcome versus feature. So a lot of times we tend to think of what we do or what we launch as a feature versus an actual outcome that we want to drive. So for example, in OVO, we have every quarter about 200 feature requests. 200 feature requests, if you can imagine, is a long list of spreadsheet with PRD links for every single line item. But essentially, I think what is important to remember is that for every feature, we want to change that to an outcome. It's a different lens to begin with. It's not what we launch; it's the actual impact that we're driving. Second up is outside-in mindset. So I think we try to do more of benchmarking externally. I think one of the geographical location we often benchmark in is in China, where we engage external vendors. We have our own design research team. We do proper market study. We also learn the current trends that's ongoing right now. For example, blockchain is a heavily discussed topic in, for example, decentralized finance. So we take a lot of learning, understanding, and use that as part of our product development and design. Third is on agile and tribal culture. So there are various ways to structure a team, right? And agile is one of the most commonly used word. Agile is actually defined as a philosophy or a mindset, right? But essentially, when you look at structuring a team, you think of, say, for example, a business team, a product team, engineering team, and these are very vertical-based functional structure, right? To be addressing rapidly to the ever-changing requirements and the new products that we launch faster and faster, we need to be able to think of ourselves as a squad, right? A squad meaning is a team of people that is dedicated across from different teams, meaning you have, for example, a guy who is designing the front end of your app. You have a guy who is dedicated to just fixing purely everything back end. And these are all people who are centered around having a common goal, having a weekly sync or daily sync that is that everyone is consistently focused on to deliver in a proper sprint cycles. Lastly is data-driven decisions. I think a lot of times it is quite common, right? That we think of a feature, for example, we say, okay, this feature can improve this area. We can reduce a number of customer service tickets, but a lot of times we missed out, right? We conveniently miss out the actual number as part of that objective. So I think a lot of times we try to make sure that we have the right data sets in place. We have to make sure that they're all tracked properly, because if it's not tracked, it's not going to be able to be used and analyzed. So these are the first 4 principles that we try to remind ourselves to stick to, and as part of our development framework. So next up is actually sharing with you guys what the actual framework is. So there are a various amount of frameworks out there. You can look up Agile, you can look up Scrum, you can look up like Kanban, and there are various tools as well. I think Notion, for example, is a very commonly used and mentioned tool these days. But sometimes I think maybe in OVO we are not all smoke and mirrors, right? I think we start with the basics. So the basics is essentially we start with number 1 is what is the customer problem that we want to solve. For example, there are certain areas in the app where people are just clicking and they're just dropping off. And why is that, right? What are the observations? How often has that happened? How many users are facing with that issue? So from that customer problem, we nail down and we look forward, right? And when we look forward, we try to benchmark. So one of the terms we commonly use in OVO is North Star. So North Star is something that we look forward, we look towards the market leaders in that specific areas that we want to build forward to. So a lot of times, like I mentioned, we look at China, we look at what is the latest trends around the world. We spend time really understanding why people design such experience in these respective features. So for example, an aha moment is when you buy an iPhone, you unbox that iPhone, is an amazing experience. And personally, I think I really enjoy as a product experience. I think iPhone unboxing is one of the coolest product experience I personally have seen. Other than that, I think what we commonly look at is product success metrics. So a lot of times we measure ourselves in how often the customer opens the app. From the moment he opens the app, where does he land on? What screens does he go to? What buttons does he click? Along with some of the critical criteria that we want to build, right? If we want to, for example, launch an investment product, what are the must-haves in an investment product? How do we inform the customers? What are their returns? How do we make sure that they get liquidity as soon as possible? So fintech principles is also another one where we think about velocity in the customer's way of transacting in OVO. Mass distribution, are we launching this product for just a small segment or a large segment across the board? We think about instant gratification. Say, for example, if you transact with OVO, what is the gratification you get and when do you get it? Do you get it at this moment, 1 second after you finish a transaction? Do you get it 7 days after? So that's some of the principles that we think about. So as we solve and identify the customer problems that we research on, and we benchmark that across the world trends, the world's best-in-class experience, we then come up with a list of ideas which we need to prioritize. When it comes to ideas and prioritization, there are tools like Miro, where now, especially in a remote working environment, is very useful. It's like a post-it note. You put it in a 2x2 framework. So highest impact, lowest effort, and then you prioritize those that you can do, you have resource to do, and it makes sense from an impact analysis perspective. Then it goes to the last step on number 3, which is actually the product iteration. So product iteration is actually one of the more tough parts to anchor on, because it is multi-team. It is a process or a step that requires engineers, product design, project management tracking, product manager validation, product requirement document that you write. A lot of times also, I think like we try, some of you may have heard the memo practice from Amazon. So that's a PR FAQ where we actually imagine ourselves from the day that we are actually launching the product, right? So how do we imagine the product being launched in a press release, for example? What will the press write about this product? How will customers interact with this product? What is the unique selling point of this product? Step 3 in product iteration is a iterative cycle, right? We try to make this cycle as high in terms of velocity as possible, as fast as possible. So sometimes, if we can, we operate in a more agile situation where we put together a proper squad. We identify what we want to do in every 2-week cycle. It's a 14-day sprint for us. We make mock-ups. We test these mock-ups, and if they go right, we release and we look at the actual outcome. And once we learn from the actual outcome, then we might identify new iterations and re-release to another version. So that's pretty much how we think about product development framework in OVO. Of course, it gets a lot more nuanced than that when you operate in scale. So for us, is the tricky part is prioritizing, right? Actually, because every quarter we actually have a product workshop where we design and determine what we want to do for the next 3 months. And why we do it in a quarterly basis is because in OVO, we match that together with our budget planning process. So our budget planning process is a process where we plan ideally, okay, how much revenue are we going to bring? How much cost reduction are we going to bring? And to achieve these numbers, these are the few product objectives and product projects that we want to deliver for the quarter. So given that we have multi-verticals, we have payments, we have lending, insurance, investment, credit scoring, it is fairly complicated, fairly large process where about 100 people or so participate in this process on a quarterly basis. But I think it's been great learning together with the team on how we keep iterating even our own framework. Because sometimes framework may not work in certain areas, and we find opportunities to discuss. For example, every product workshop that we've completed, we send a survey, we get feedback on how can we do better for the upcoming quarter. So that's some information to share on our product development framework. And this is my last slide, actually, as I'm running out of time. So just to share an actual example of a product that we've released. So this is what we call a receipt page revamp. So in OVO, one of our highest use case or most frequent use case is bill payment. Essentially, you are buying a digital product, say top up your phone credits, etc. So what we have tried to do here is that we have tried to build a more modular and scalable UI UX for a simple receipt page. You'll be surprised how important a single receipt page is, because we get a lot of customer service inquiries asking about the transaction status, right? Because when you buy a digital product like we call it Pulsa in Indonesia, which is your prepaid credits, there are two legs to that transaction. One is a payments, and the other leg is actually the fulfillment. Fulfillment is when you actually get the product you pay for. So in this case, what we actually do is that we create a very unified receipt page. We have contextualized areas where we can change different information depending on the type of transactions. We make sure that we have a decent and understandable copy where if you are buying something and if you are purchasing something, they are different in terms of copies. And we make sure that they have dynamic status included in this transaction, so that you don't get too worried when you don't receive your digital product immediately after you finish your purchase. So that's all from me. Thank you very much. Looking forward to hear from the next 1 or 2 speakers. Over back to you, Celine.
Thanks, UI. So that's really an insightful session. Thanks for sharing your process and framework. I love how you managed to bake in the customer-centric mindset all over. Plus, users first, right? Yeah, thanks so much. I think we'll see you later. Next up, we have Tanisha from Pomelo.
Yeah, thanks, Celine. And thanks, UI, for sharing such great insights. I can't agree more with, the kind of frameworks and the toolkit that is really needed in order to run various use cases within the company. And I agree with most of whatever you have, presented. Back to me, I have taken a little different approach. Instead of going all over and presenting what kind of framework toolkits that we have at Pomelo Fashion, I choose to dig deeper into one of the frameworks. And the framework that stuck with me when I chose this opportunity was the 5 whys. I guess that's the framework that I'm talking about because of the simplicity of it and how it is so useful in not just product management, but like be it design, be it operations, be it any kind of department, any kind of work that you're up to, which involves multiple stakeholders, which involves like multiple parts of the job being done. I feel like this is going to be an important one in your toolbox. So let's dig deeper into why you should care. You should care because, like if you find yourself or your team working on fixing the same issues repeatedly, you may want to care about it. If you are that guy who's, sifting through the overwhelming list of requirements from various stakeholders or from customer experience teams coming in to solve a problem, you may want to pay attention. If your team often jumps to solution to a problem on hand because of, like a resource crunch or something without really thinking of how the impact trail goes on and what are the countermeasures, I believe firmly that the 5 whys may come to your rescue. So let's dig into the 5 whys, right? Now, you would laugh at me for sharing this picture with you. It seems like a picture of an assembly line of a car production company. Well, yes, it is. It is from Toyota Global website that I took it. And the reason is because the framework of 5 whys, the simple framework that we have so commonly being used in the tech industry and other industries today, actually was originated by Sakichi Toyota and dates back to like the 1930s. It's almost going to be a century since this framework is around, and it hails from the manufacturing unit of one of the Toyota's plants. I believe back in the day, this is how this framework would have come into picture, because something of this sort would have happened, that a machine X in the plant would have stopped working. And as it used to be the mindset, some plant manager would have called a mechanic to fix the machine X. Or, the mechanic would have replaced it, the whole machine or a part. The plant manager would have thought that, the plant can start again because everything seems sorted. But unfortunately, to their disappointment, the problem reoccurred. And they repeat the process again and again. So you see how much inefficiency was this bringing onto the system, wherein the assembly line, so huge and so many plants out there, was causing such delays and so on and so forth on the hands of Toyota. And I think that's why the smart Mr. Toyota must have insisted on the team asking the why question. Now let's imagine the same scenario of the machine X not working and now asking the why questions. So if you ask, why did the machine stop working? The team then would have realized that probably machine X was linked to some system Y because it is part of the assembly line, wherein there was an overload caused by some fuse to blow up. Now, if you ask again, you would realize that there was an overload because there was some insufficient lubrication in the machine causing the system to heat up. Don't stop here, my friends. Just keep on asking why till the time that you reach the root cause. If you ask why again, you realize that an oil pump didn't circulate the oil evenly. And why? Because it broke last week and nobody fixed it. Why? Because the manager, apparently who approves the fixes, perhaps this could be one of the reasons, was on leave, and so the budget wasn't approved. Now, if you ask the why again, you would realize that there was this process that was missing, which should have been in place for approving budgets if this manager wasn't around. Simple, right? But you see a few things here. What you realize is, by the way, 5 in the 5 whys is just a number. You see how I've asked 6 whys here because I wanted to reach the root cause. And so you may reach the root cause in 3 whys, 4 whys, 5 whys, and like choose your number. You also realize here that, the problem which we would have thought of only occurring in machine X actually has a trail and so many sub-problems occurring in so many other systems, in so many other processes. It not even relates to systems, but like goes on up to the entire company, the processes, the people, and so on and so forth. So now, assuming that most of us are familiar with the tech industry and have worked with tech teams, let's take a common symptom, a buggy code release. Are you or any of your teams, like this person who finds the bug, fix the bug, then do a code release? But then again, we find that now we have more bugs, or, now we have more bugs after release. So what I'm trying to say is, it's not that you should not fix that bug. Of course, when you start asking the why, the first why is that there is an issue in the new app version that we push, for example. So the solution to this is, of course, that, we should have a patch of code to fix the problem. But then if we don't limit ourselves just to that short-term thing, we are able to go down into the code trail. And we find that, it happened because there was some code which was not tested properly, had bugs, and was let to go into the production system. We ask why again. We realize that probably there was no time for testing before release. Why? We kept on adding requirements on top of the initial scope. Sounds familiar, right? The scope creep. Why? Because the PM and the stakeholders weren't aligned on the business specs. Why? Because probably the process is broken. And hence what you realize is like the beauty of this, right? The beauty of this framework is that you not only are able to identify the short-term solution, which you would have done it already, but you are able to identify this trail map of countermeasures which further need to be solved in order for that problem to not occur again. For example, the code wasn't tested well and had bugs. Probably we need a process for not letting any untested code into production. We probably need to spend more time on allocating proper resources. We probably need to fix the code, the scope creep that happened. There needs to be a proper process in place for stakeholder alignment. Now let's continue with some examples from real life, from myself. I remember a couple of years back, there were customers escalating on our social media about some delays in delivery. Now, as soon as you hear about a delay in delivery, I'm sure what comes to mind is warehouse, operational efficiency, and so on and so forth. I mean, you're partly right that the packages weren't delivered to the customers on the time promised because there was a delay from the warehouse, or, there was an inefficiency that was there in the system. But that's not it, right? I mean, instead of blaming it on the warehouse and so on and so forth, if you actually start asking the whys, you would soon realize that the root cause was actually a communication problem happening between the campaign lead and the warehouse manager, because of which the warehouse manager didn't actually know how to plan the staff for the expected order volumes that would come in. And on top of that, the dates that we give out to the customers weren't reset. The lead times weren't reset because probably somebody in the operations team who was supposed to do it didn't know how to do it. And so it comes down to also highlighting the problem of training the teams well. There should be a process for tech communication, which probably was broken, and hence the operations team couldn't take help from the tech team in order to update the lead times at that time. So you see how the problem isn't just one problem. It has gone on to be like this map, which you can just figure and you can realize, I hope, that the map is not linear. It is like a fishbone, and it gives you all these trails which are further problems that you should be focusing on, and identify what's the priority of these problems for you, and so on and so forth. So at the end goals of the 5 whys, so to say, is to build a root cause trail of the problem rather than just fixing the symptom. So the idea is not just to find a solution, but to establish all these countermeasures. So that's not the end, guys. I have some bonus for you. Interestingly, the 5 whys is such a framework that you can use also to aid other frameworks. Now, this is what I did for a roadmap that I was working on. I'll give you an example. At Pomelo, we offer our customers tap, try, buy as a product in which the customers can try first, buy later, after picking up the products at the store. Now, you would soon realize that the company makes revenue only after the customer comes to pick up the order. And that is a problem that we were dealing with. We were having a no-show rate. We were having no-show from customers. So rather than just, ideating on our own in isolation, what I ended up doing was I ended up doing customer surveys. I ended up talking to the customers and then putting the data into the why framework. So what I ended up getting is the users weren't coming to pick up the package because, surprising, right? They actually didn't know that their package was there at the store. They also forgot to come up and pick up the package. They weren't able to find time to come and pick up at the time that we were asking them to come. Lastly, there were also some users who had lost interest in the selected products, and that could be for n number of reasons. And then if I dig deeper, I found more meat on which I could then use as inputs and iterate further and use these as ideas and problems that needed to be solved in order for me to accomplish my metric, my goal of improving the no-show rate. For example, I could if the user is saying that they didn't know that their package arrives at the store, that's probably a problem. We probably are not showing them the date of delivery upfront. They aren't being reminded enough about their package. They are busy and the pickup time doesn't suit them and there is no way for them to extend it, and so on and so forth. And these are all the things that, if you're a Pomelo user, you will find that these are the things that we implemented and we were able to bring up the no-show rate. So hence, just concluding on my part, the 5 whys is a framework that I find really helpful in product management because it solves the core problems and not just fix the symptoms. It encourages cross-functional collaboration and shared goals. It establishes a holistic approach to solutions, can be a good tool really to split up things into action plan, as well as can be an aid to other frameworks and roadmaps, as I just suggested. And with that, I would like to say thank you for having me here, and back to you, Celine.
I'm back. Hi, thanks, Anisha. Really interesting session. I really love all the examples you've given. It helps people. It really helps me understand how to use the 5 whys. Yeah, it's super useful technique that can help you analyze and fix the root of the problems, which is definitely something I struggle with every day, especially as a product manager. And it really forces us to think deeper, doesn't it? So yeah, thanks for sharing. I guess we'll see you in a bit. Next up, we'll have Zach from Xfers. Ready when you are.
Right. Hello. Hi, everyone. For those who just joined, right, I am Zach and Head of Product at Xfers. So I'd like to first thank UI for a very comprehensive sharing of the whole product development framework, and also for Tanisha sharing a very good way to understand the problems that we're trying to solve. And as for myself, right, what I'd like to share today is a prioritization framework that I think is very simple to implement and also to get started with. Right, so let's get cracking. It's called the RISE prioritization framework. And as for some of my team members, they like to call it the nasi framework, right? So for those who are coming from Indonesia, in Bahasa language, rice is nasi. And why I'd like to talk about this is because this is a very typical scenario that I think a lot of PMs are put in. Prioritization is very hard. You have a lot of different stakeholders. Management might tell you that they want a certain functionality since last week. Engineers will be looking at fixing their technical debt, and your operations team is always asking for new tools to help with their efficiency, right? So with so many different opportunities that is in your backlog, how do you go about understanding or sharing what is the best opportunities to work on? So with this RISE framework, what I want to provide you today is a tool that will help you prioritize opportunities in a data-informed manner. And number two, being a tool that you can use to align your stakeholders on what's the best sequence to deliver the most impactful features and enhancements, right? And then number three, to of course drive the most impact and success to your business outcomes. So what is RISE? Simply put, right, RISE is a formula that allows you to calculate a certain score, and the score is derived from reach times impact times confidence and divided by effort that's required. Right. So when you look through your backlog of all the different opportunities or initiatives that you can work on, there should be a RISE score that you can derive. And how do you go about calculating this RISE score? First, let's talk about how you calculate reach, right? So, all right, so sorry. Before we even go into how you calculate reach, I think as PMs, it's very important to be very, very clear about your product objectives, right? So if you do not know your current product objectives, always go back to your OKRs or KPI, or for example, what UI mentioned, right? North Star metrics. And when these objectives are clear, then you can start to calculate what the reach is. And reach is basically about how many customers or users that will be affected by a certain new feature, enhancement, or functionality that you're going to release. Right. And in most cases, this number is not something that you're going to be pulling out from thin air. This number is something that you should be able to find from your business analytics dashboards or any form of cohort charts. And but in some cases, right, so especially if you're working in a B2B business or more complex setups like B2B2C, it's a little bit different because some businesses can have a lot more impact on your company than others. Than other customers, right? So how do you then go about thinking about reach? In this case, a simple way to go about it is to actually think about how much revenue you can unlock by working on a certain initiative, right? So how you can quickly kind of get a gauge of that would be number of accounts affected times the revenue that you can get from these accounts. All right, so we'll go into this a little bit deeper when we talk about the example. Now, how do you then calculate impact? Okay, so impact will be about how much change you are likely to see from delivering a certain product idea. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting feedback that I might be a little bit soft. Is it better now? Hopefully you guys can hear me. Yeah. All right. So for the impact score, right, this is the recommended scale to use. And so if you expect massive impact, you put a score of 3, right? And if you expect high impact, it's a score of 2. And so on and so forth. So now this is a part that is a little bit more subjective. You have to kind of look through your entire backlog and really determine how much impact, how much change is it going to bring to your OKR, to your North Star metric. And a very simple way that I think about this is that anything that's going to bring me 5 to 10 times difference to the metric that we are measuring, to my North Star metric, is something that is more along the lines of massive impact, right? And anything that's between 2 to 5 times, that'll be high impact. 1 to 2 times, that'll be medium impact, and anything below is low and minimal, right? And how do you calculate confidence? What is confidence? Confidence is actually how sure you are about every one of the score that you're assigning to reach, impact, and the effort scores. So why do we need this confidence score? It's there to actually reduce your optimistic bias. And how you use this, right, is that if you're 100% confident that the reach, the impact numbers, and the effort that is required is very accurate, you have worked with your team on all these numbers, you have already tested a prototype with your users, then you can put a 100% score to it. Right? Usually it's unlikely to be a 100% score. Okay, so and if you look at something that's along the lines of a 75% region, it might be an idea that you've already tested with the users. You already understand that, okay, this is going to provide impact to the users, right? But for your development team, they are still unclear about a certain amount of effort or the cost factor that is required to develop this change. Then you can put something along the lines of 75%. And anything that is 50% and below is something that you are actually having low confidence in, because you might not have done a proper product design or discovery on this idea yet, right? So you want to put a lower score to it. And finally, calculating of effort. This is about how much time a project will actually demand from your teammates. And how I recommend calculating this score is to just count it in person weeks, right? A lot of us work by sprints, and sprints can be 1 week or 2 weeks. So it's quite easy to kind of just get an estimate based on that. So a project that's going to require 5 people 1 week to work on, there'll be about 5 persons a week. And a project that requires 1 person 5 weeks to work on, there's also 5 person weeks. Right? And of course, this number, or how you calculate, you can kind of adjust it to days, hours, months. It really depends on how your team measures work estimations. Right. So with this said, right, just want to run through a very quick example of how we use this in Xfers. So for example, let's say we are building a payment gateway. Our business is payment gateway business, and the product area that you are working on, for example, let's say it's dashboard, a payment gateway dashboard, right? And the impact that you're driving for is the gross transaction value. And in this case, your customers are, 2 of your customers are bringing you 50K per month, and 10 of your customers are bringing you 2K per month. So how I would then think about these 3 initiatives, one being notifications on the dashboard. You know how you go to Facebook and you have these notifications, you click on it, you can see the latest messages to you and so on. So that's notifications. And for multi-user access, it's for any of our customers. For example, let's say Xfers, we have a lot of different roles. And for example, we have operations people, we have finance teams, we have legal teams, and they all need access to the payment gateway dashboard, right? And everybody should be able to log into Xfers account and be able to see, be able to do their work. For example, if they need to do financial reconciliation or to match a certain payment to a certain customer, everyone should be able to log in and have different access. And finally, for improved payments report, that will be basically for the use of finance teams to reconcile their payments, right? And just want to quickly talk about how we calculate each of this as an example, right? right? In the case of notifications, for example, this affects every customer. Then we just take this 10 times expected 2K revenue, and we take 2 times the expected 50K revenue, and we get a score of 120, for example, right? And for multi-user access, this only affects bigger clients. So only those that are bringing us 50K revenue. So we take 2 times 50. Okay, I won't go into this example. Let's talk about impact. So for notifications, yes, it impacts everybody, but how much GTV is it going to increase for our customers? Probably not a lot, right? And how much revenue is it going to affect? Probably not a lot as well. But something like multi-user access, if we do not have it, our big customers will actually just churn. They will stop using our service. So it's something that is high impact. Right. Let's go on to confidence. So this is something that is a little bit subjective and depends on how much testing you have done. So just put in a value that you feel confident about. And effort is something that you work with your engineering team and design team on. Right? And at the end of the day, remember, take R times I times C divided by E, and you get all this score, the right score. Okay, so what you do after that is you just do a sorting, sort according to the right score, and you get a rough sequence of how you should go about working on the initiatives and opportunities. Right. Hopefully that's something simple and easy for you to implement immediately and drive more impact to your business. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Sorry. Okay. Thanks, Jack. Getting right. Yeah, I kind of agree enough on how prioritization is key in product management. Or in fact, I think it applies to any key decisions you make in life. So the RISE frameworks are really good, and definitely one of the, I think, the very clear, simple ways it can help us to prioritize, think critically, and yeah, be really logical about it. So thanks for sharing that. Okay, now that we've heard from all three speakers, let's go into deeper discussions regarding like the various frameworks that shared. Yeah, I'd like to invite all the panelists back. I guess they're all here. Okay, but before we move on to our discussion, just a quick plug. If you find this session useful and would like to learn more on how to build outcome-oriented products, join us at Tech in Asia's Product Development Conference on April 7th and 8th. We feature over 20 leading product experts from top companies such as Grab, Zoom, Canva, Hula, and many more. I have great news to share for all the attendees today. As a Road to PDC attendee, you can get the ticket for only $15, which means you get to save $35 off the full ticket price. So you can grab your ticket today at pdc.techinasia.com/road2 and apply the coupon code ROAD2PDC to enjoy the offer. For your easy reference, someone will be dropping a link in the chat feature, so you can refer to the details there. Yeah. So moving on, let's begin the panel. So yeah, I have 3 questions for the 3 of you. So all 3 of you shared really, really useful frameworks. A lot of it we use it too. So how do you think an organization or product team should go about selecting a framework that's right for them, since there are a lot of good ones out there? Any advice?
Maybe Tanisha first, ladies first.
Yeah, sure. I can jump in. So simple and honest answer to your question, Celine, is I think it really depends on what are the use cases and what is the kind of situation that you're looking for a framework in. I mean, it could happen that one company has to take on 2-3 different frameworks for different use cases. As an example, at Pomelo, lately we have been launching a lot of new roadmaps, a lot of new products. Let's say we just launched our loyalty program, right? And for that, the framework that we started using was story mapping. because we were starting something from scratch. Now, story mapping is something that we would not particularly use for prioritization. For prioritization, we would use some of the frameworks that have been shared today, like RICE is a good framework. But RICE can also be adapted to suit the organization that we are talking in question. At an organization level, I feel like all these frameworks are good toolkits to have, but you need to keep adapting. You need to keep switching from framework to framework in order to come up rightly for the situation.
Sounds good. You want anything to add?
Yeah. I think I fully concur with what Tanisha just said. I think it goes back to number one, right? What actually is the situation in the organization? What are we trying to solve? How big is the team? How mature is the team in terms of the resource? For example, in OVO, I think the challenge and the situation we have is that we deal with a lot of stakeholders. We are also releasing product in a highly regulated environment, right? So we identify our stakeholders across board, and we have different stakeholders like risk, finance, data, compliance, and these are issues and factors that we need to take into consideration when we release our product. Then also, I think, how are your resources going to be split? Are they going to be dedicated to a tribal concept? Are they going to be shared resource across different streams, different business verticals? I think that's a first step to take before addressing the framework. Yeah.
Thanks. Zach, anything to add?
Yeah, again, very good points that were brought out by both Tanisha and UI. So my view is very simplistic as well. I think it really depends on the people that you're working with, your stakeholders. At the end of the day, a lot of the different frameworks that are present, you kind of derive the same result at the end of the day. What really matters is your ability to use the framework to communicate what is important, the why behind the things that you're doing, and the way that you're prioritizing different things. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Okay, next question. While the frameworks are all amazing, the devil is often in details. Do you have any tips and tricks? Okay, yeah, tips on how you want to ensure the framework is being well used and executed, and really seamlessly integrated into the product development process. Make sure everyone's not really applying it and applying the deep thinking.
Yeah, maybe I can start with this one. I think maybe to be real, right? I think in OVO we are also learning ourselves. We are not perfect, and I think what is really important that I personally have encountered is to find the like-minded product-centric people in the organizations, in your organization, to be your champion. So I think in every organization there will be a handful of people who will be very, very product-centric, and these are the people who they really get technical. They understand different frameworks and apply them differently. And when you plan for a quarterly roadmap, it's good to get their input, figure out what we should try differently. One example is this memo release and PRFAQ that we in the product world is very common that you hear it, right? Learning from Amazon. And I think in OVO, for example, sometimes when we say PRFAQ, it does not always come out as an actual PRFAQ. So I think we try to identify, okay, what does an actual PRFAQ mean? What does it mean by writing a proper press release, right? And work backwards. So I think giving feedback to each other, revisit your product framework on a quarterly basis. Keep sharing, public resource. There are a lot of podcasts out there, a lot of good books out there. I think these are some ideas or tips and tricks that I would like to share.
Zach, anything to add, or Tanisha?
Right. So maybe I think I can take this first. I think maybe I would like to talk a little bit about how to integrate it into your product development process. And there's this idea that comes from the book called Atomic Habit. I'm not sure if you all have read it, but if you have read it, it's a very good book. And one of the ideas is habit stacking. That means there's something that you're already doing. You add a habit that you want to form on top of that thing that you're already doing, right? So in our case, all the PMs have backlogs for the initiatives that they are working on, and they use these to work with the engineering team, right? So a good way to then implement the RISE framework would be to make sure that you have a RISE score for every single initiative that is in your backlog. So yeah, that's something that I think that's a good way, right, to make sure that it's integrated into your ongoing process.
Just to add on to what my two panelists have suggested, I think it really depends. I mean, it really is about accountability, right? And how you find out these small steps, which will then make your team more accountable and more like using the frameworks, and not just like accountability in terms of, you are part of the product team, you have to use these frameworks, but it's more also like a feedback discussion, as UI had suggested. For example, for us, what we have done, since we are a company which has a lot of departments as pillars to, like give the product offering that we have, for us, the communication among these different departments is really important. And not all of them, and not everyone can be expected to be technical and, like understand the product things. So for that, storytelling becomes really important as a framework, for example. And as we attend a lot of these meetings, a lot of communication happens and so on and so forth. So we make sure that we have a template. We have all these different templates in Confluence as we use Confluence for us. And then we keep on updating it so that anytime anyone wants to refer, the documentation is right there. So, like this is just one example, but this is to help us ingrain in the product team as we keep on expanding some of the core values that we want to follow as a team and as a company.
Thanks for sharing that. I love that all of your suggestions are like super actionable. So okay, final question for our panel. I think we can all agree that having clear success metrics is super important in product management. So after adopting a framework for a period of time, how do you think you can go about measuring the success of a framework? Like, see if it's broken, working well, it needs tweaking. Any thoughts on that?
Zach, you want to go on this one, or you
Yeah, I mean, okay, yeah, I can take this first, right? So measuring of the outcome of that you were trying to measure in the first place, your KPIs or North Star metrics, I think that's the obvious one. But what I do believe that, I always believe that these frameworks, right, is being used to help us better communicate certain things to our teammates. And a good way to just go about understanding whether it has worked to help your teammates understand why they are working on this, why they are working on certain things, is to talk to them and just get feedback from them, right? So I believe that a lot of us are working with very smart and talented folks. So they are also people that are trying to drive for impact, right? I don't believe that your engineers are just sitting there and just writing out code. They are trying to write code to create something that will drive value for your customers, right? So talk to them and ask them whether, hey, do you think that based on this framework that I've used, are we working on the right thing? Are we getting to the right understanding of the product or the problems that we're trying to solve? Yeah, and I think that would be a good way to make sure that your communication after using the framework is becoming better and more effective.
Yeah, talking to users. Tanisha, you are anything to add?
No, not this one. I think Zach covered pretty well.
I have, I'll just like to summarize and add my points there. Again, honest and simple, right? Like, you will realize that a framework is not working if you're no longer using the framework, or if it's taking a lot of your effort and pain, like in order to just stick to that framework. And that's when you realize that the framework needs to be tweaked, or you need to go back to the drawing board, take a step back and see, is it really something that works for you? For example, like you may realize that design thinking and every such process as design thinking has story mapping as a base framework, right? But story mapping might not work in all situations and might not work in all organizations as such. So if you realize that you've created a story map, but now that you are creating user stories, you're working with your developers, your story map is, like somewhere in your archive folder and it's not being used, then you know that, you're not a company who uses story maps effectively, or you need to, like go back, think about the whys of, why you're not using it, and so on and so forth. Yeah, so that will be my key additions.
Thanks for those tips. Yeah, I think completely agree with them. Cool. I think we actually have a number of interesting Q&A questions. Let's move on to that. I think the first question is for UI. Can we have the questions? Very good. Okay, so the first question is how to research new ideas and finally execute the idea when many fintech startups sprung up and give new ideas. I think that's for UI.
Sure. Thank you. That looks like a kind of two-part question. So I think when we talk about ideas, right, I think before we go to ideas, it's important to go back to the original problems that we want to solve. And I think that should be the first point of focus. We all agree that this is the problem that we want to solve, and these are the objectives that we want to reach for. And when everyone is clear on the objective and the problem, then there's an ideation process. So the ideation can be a simple brainstorming session between 5 people, 10 people. We used to do this in person. We write it on Post-it notes, but in a virtual environment, you can do that too with simple tools like Miro, for example. Just so you can actually have digital Post-it notes where everyone comes up with an idea, everyone explains what the idea is about. And then say, for example, we have a 2x2 framework, right? 2x2 meaning, it's a 4-quadrant. What is the highest impact? What is the lowest effort? And then we put these ideas, on this quadrant, right? And then we see, okay, maybe, the highest impact are these ones, and they are also low efforts as well. So when we have prioritized these ideas, then you can do that by you can research it internally with your team if you have a proper design and research team. So in OVO, we have about 10 to 15 people design and research team where we have design and research sprints, meaning every 2 weeks they come back and share what they have learned, what they have looked out for, and based on that learning, they create mock-ups. If you do not have that design and research team in your organization, you can also reach out to external vendors. There are many global vendors, local vendors in almost any country that you can find. They all vary in different prices. They will give you a quote and they will tell you this is their research scope. So there are a lot of resources out there.
Thanks, Jimmy. Hope that answered your question. I think this next question is for Tanisha. So with the 5 whys, how would you prioritize the product development by separating the incoming product feature release and the existing issue that fix required immediately? I guess it's
got it. So thanks, Dika, for the question. I believe there are 2-3 parts here. One, you are suggesting 5 whys to be used as a prioritization framework, which it is not really. 5 whys can get you to the identifying the trails. It can help you build a problem map that needs your attention. But ultimately, you need to use some other frameworks to identify how do you prioritize the roadmap, right? And as far as you talk about whether to prioritize the product development for the incoming features versus the existing issues that need to be fixed, I believe that's again going back to analyzing the impact. If something is broken, if something is really high impact for the customer, it really needs to be fixed. So that short-term fix, that short-term patch needs to go out right away. But if that's something that like you think will happen again or has been happening over time, I would suggest using the 5 whys framework to analyze the situation and then see how do you avoid happening it again.
Thanks, Anisha. I hope that answered your question, Dika. The last question is for Zach. So how long have you been using Rise, and any particular trade-offs when using Rise compared to other frameworks?
Okay, so I've been advocating the use of Rise for about over 2 years now in Xfers. And I wouldn't say that there's a particular trade-off in using the framework versus other frameworks, but when choosing frameworks, I think what you want to think about is how much time are you sinking into using this framework? Is this something that that comes naturally to you? If you're spending over 2 hours to 3 hours or on a per week basis, just trying to figure out how much score you should be attributing to a certain one of the parameters or one of the inputs, right? Then there's a little bit too much time that you're trying to put into this whole framework. Then maybe it's not framework for you. The other one being how well are you able to use that framework to communicate the importance of certain initiatives over other initiatives, right? If that communication or the why behind the prioritization is not coming across, then again, this framework may not be for you, and you want to look for other frameworks that might help you do that better.
Thanks, Zach, for the answer. Actually, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks, UI, Tanisha, and Zach for sharing so much with us today. I learned a lot, and I'm sure it's the same for the audience, so thank you. And thanks, everyone, for attending this session. We really appreciate you spending time with us today. So before you go, don't forget to join the next Road to PDC sharing session and also the Product Development Conference in April. So thanks for joining us again, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.